Okay, in my opinion, NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and aid organizations, missionaries, those three things together is the biggest business on the planet. And I consider them a business. I do not consider them a nonprofit or a social activist type thing or anything like that. Social activist is really just some intellectual thinking he or she is smarter than everybody else. Very difficult to do it. Primo non nocere. First, do no harm. Okay, on my link for my Patreon, I have, wouldn't it be nice if all the aid organizations, missionaries, and people that try to save the world would first, primo non nocere, first do no harm. That's the kind of the Hippocratic oath. But the NGOs are the aid organizations. You got non-governmental organizations, which are the, I don't know, Doctors Without Frontier, and then, World Vision, which is one of the most corrupt ones on the planet. You got all these aid organizations. It's very hard to say that you can have an organization bigger than about one group of people and have it be noble. Okay, I'm not sure it's possible to have a noble group. As far as I know, the only one that seems to do relatively good is the Red Cross. Okay, if I was going to say, where would you give money that is probably going to be used for the best use? The Red Cross. I mean, give blood. I had a person ask me the other day why I'm giving blood, and I go, golly, why am I being a nice person and giving blood? I don't know. Okay, it just seems like the right thing to do, and guess what? I have been given blood in the past, therefore I owe the Red Cross my blood. Okay, but aid organizations are destroying the planet. So I'm going to, charities, aid organizations, missionaries, and they are, in the noblest sense, Frommer wrote this one thing like ecotourism. Ecotourism is a noble idea that destroys the planet. Okay, ecotourism is a marketing thing, as is organic food. Okay, these are all marketing things, and if you expect a corporation to not word things in a way that convinces you with their propaganda that they're doing good, yeah, I got a bridge to sell you. Okay, but as a rule on organic, don't eat any. If you want to be healthy, live in a very small city and don't eat anything in a package. And then you're going to probably be pretty healthy. Anything that's in a package just has to have preservatives in it, right? Just the process of putting it in plastic makes it unhealthy because of these microplastics. Okay, the U.S., but I'm going to read you RT News, which is Russia Today. Okay, Russia Today had a really good article about, how the U.S. government uses NGOs to corrupt civil society around the world. And I do believe that the United States government, which is ran by people, is not doing good around the planet. The primo non nocere. They're not looking at it from first do no harm. I was going to start an aid organization called First Do No Harm and try to get together a group of people, but most people want to make exceptions on why they can do it. The only thing I can tell you right off the bat, the only thing I know that you can almost give away is education. Okay, if you give away education, they don't really abuse it. Maybe malaria medicine a little bit, but when an organization is more than one noble person, it probably is going to be corrupted. Okay, but how to have a balanced understanding, geopolitical understanding of the world? Well, you can travel to 114 countries and live abroad for, 26 years, and you're going to find that the propaganda doesn't really work on you because you're constantly in a different situation. But people get on to channels, they get on the CNNs, and MSNBC, which is extreme propaganda. And you got these conservative, Breitbart, whatever. But the point is this, is that when I was in the United States, I read 5 newspapers a day. Why? Because I wanted to understand, but I recognized the pattern. Okay, the pattern is this, is that you have kind of similar headlines, which are all only to make money, and they're trying to hook you into reading their opinion article, not the news. The news is something new that we need to be aware of. Like, I need to know of a malaria outbreak in a way. I need to know of a tsunami. I need to know of an earthquake. I need to know of a tornado. I need to know certain things. I need to know if the country I'm in is breaking out in war. Okay, I need to know about elections. Elections are when wars break out. So, United States, 2024, it's a great time for a war to break out. Okay, but I read 5 newspapers. I'd read, News Sentinel, Journal Gazette, USA Today, the Wall Street Journal, and Investor Daily, I think. And then on Sundays, I would get the Chicago Tribune and the New York Times. And I would try to get a good understanding. But I would read the headlines every day. And what you see is that, according to the writers, how they spin it. Okay, that's the reason why O'Reilly calls it no spin news, but he does spin things. Okay, I don't care what he says. He's always wording things in a controversial way, and as he gets older, he gets more angry, I think, which is why you should be careful on watching the news. Okay, but reading the news is less propaganda, it's less influential on you than it is watching the news. Watching the news, the tone of voice, the way they project themselves, the photos, whatever, is like a mesmerizing thing. So as a rule of thumb, don't watch the news, read the news. But I'm in the United States, and I was laughing. One local newspaper was $1.50 each. Now I'm right next to a library, by design, by choice, by whatever. I'm really happy to be able to go to this library and go through all the magazines. Okay, and I can go through all the newspapers, and I can do it for free. The great benefit of the United States is libraries. Libraries and knowledge is given away for free, and everything of no value makes you pay for it. Like a $3 cup of coffee or a $6 cup of coffee at Starbucks. There is nothing stupider than going through the drive-through at Starbucks. I mean, Starbucks, to go inside, there's kind of an argument for that, but to go through the drive-through for one of the most expensive cups of coffee on the planet, which isn't really coffee, it's probably laced with sugar and cinnamon and all these things, is dumb. Okay, I have no mercy on that, as is I have no mercy on somebody walking around with 2 dogs. That is a lonely person. And I'm not going to talk about the peanut butter problem for women and dogs. Okay, but I get up every morning and I have like 14 YouTube things. I have over 150 English only things in my Google. See, I have this Google, bookmarks, and I can go down to it. I got 2 different levels. I can open up all 150 of them if I really wanted to get a grasp of how the world is looking at it, because they're from all around the planet. Like, you do have like Nepal news in English, Bangkok news in English. You have Kiev news in English, Kiev, Ukraine, and you have these different things. So I have 14 of them right now that I would consider the main players. And I try to get it heavy duty on the progressive side and less on the conservative side. Why do I do that? Because, I had a guy a long time ago in the Philippines. He had to get off the phone with me. He says, I have to go watch Bill O'Reilly. He says, and he hated Bill O'Reilly. He says, I got to know what the enemy's doing, okay? And he actually sent me one time of him talking to a Obama. I always laugh at this guy. This guy was by far one of the most corrupt people I've ever met in my life. I had a picture of him sniffing glue, which he's pretending, and he asked me to take it down, and I took it down. But he used to stay up to 3 o'clock in the morning in the LA cafes just so he could take home girls. See, prostitutes and Filipino girls need a place to sleep. So if you stay up till 3 o'clock, and they'll go home with you for free in Manila, in LA Cafe, in different bars because they need a place to sleep. A lot of the prostitution is weekend warriors. They just come there on the weekends just to make a bunch of extra money and pretend that they're applying for jobs. But I have 15 channels that I can open up, and then it takes them a while to load. They don't load that well, but they load pretty good in McDonald's. Okay, I actually always say McDonald's, and I talk about Walmart, and I talk about Dollar General, and I talk about my favorite store is Dollar Tree. Why? Because if you're so stupid that you think that I'm stupid for going to these places, especially McDonald's for a 63-cent coffee, which is one of the best cups of coffee, is 10 times better than Guatemalan coffee. Guatemalan coffee is horrible inside Guatemala. Colombia is at least priced right where I was at. Okay, most expensive coffee on the planet, and the worst is probably in the countries where they make coffee. Colombia, Costa Rica, and even Ethiopia, right? Ethiopia coffee, though, the coffee ceremony is worth doing by far. If you really want to enjoy coffee, go to the Ethiopia coffee ceremony. Okay, but I open up these 15 channels and I peruse the headlines, and if one of the headlines is insightful, intuitive, and seems to have the goal of not making me angry but informing me, I read them. If I read a headline and it's obviously wants to provoke me to be angry, I don't read it, because wise people learn that propaganda works by making you angry. Okay, but this one article is really important to me today because I'm really worried about the influence of the United States in all countries. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you have Saudi Arabia and these countries funding all the mosque. They actually pay for mosque in all the countries, like especially in the sub-Sahara. Religions are they are wanting to convert their people to their religion. Okay, I have no problems with religion converting people. I have no problem in a way. I have no clue what is the best thing to do. I do know that an evil person will find a way to do evil, and a good person will find a way to do it. And I do believe that is what the value of religions are, whether it's Buddhist, Taoism. I don't care what you mean. You can probably call anything a religion anymore. They're almost all cults. The goal of a religion is to give you, I believe that God has a sense of humor, and he says, here we got a bunch of confusion, and a good person's going to find a kind and beneficial way to do things. Primo non nocere. First, do no harm. If you start an aid organization and you're harming people in any way, which is 99% of them are dreadfully hurting people because they're making slaves out of people. First time I realized this, I was in Niger, Africa, and I went to a famine, okay, what I thought was a famine. A person actually even volunteered to pay me to go there. I was in, Czech Republic or something at the time, and they wanted to pay me to go. I think maybe it's Lithuania, Latvia, that's where I was at, Latvia, and they wanted to go to Niger. I was earning, like $3,000 or $4,000 a month at the time, and I didn't take their donation or whatever, as because I had an overabundance of money. Like right now, I'd really love to go to Israel and report on the war because I know that I could do a better job. Well, that's not a better job. I could do an honest portrayal of what's going on, and because I don't make money if I cared about you watching my videos, I would try to word things that always made you feel good, right? I don't care about you. I care about me first, and I care about being a good person. And I also care about finding people that, basically how would you say it? They have enough intelligence to change the world. Okay, obviously the 95% are, basic. I don't know what you want to call them. They're captivated by the propaganda, and they're angry all day long, and they're addicted to problems, and they're addicted to anger. I'm addicted to having a good life. I'm a global citizen. I really don't have allegiance to any country anymore, especially not the United States, because it's become one of the losers on the planet. Okay, it's still the best country to live in. On the other side is because you have mobility. Mobility is what you want, and you have the ability to earn a lot of money. And if you're smart, you move away from the city where you can have a high wages. I mean, you can get $15 an hour here and live in one of the cheapest places. It's some of the cheapest cost of living with the highest wage differentiation. You want a differentiation between the cost of how much money you make. Like I can go to McDonald's, make $15 an hour, and I can live in this campsite for $590 a month. The better way would be I could find probably cheaper ways to live, especially if I would, there's older people that have an extra room and things like that. And if I really spent a lot of time, I don't want to be here, right? Okay, but if you read 5 newspapers a day, you start to see patterns. If you open up 15 websites, you start to see patterns. If you open up 150 websites on news in English, you start to see a pattern. But the aid organization, but if nothing else, you want to be, there's good in everything. Okay, every RT News and Sputnik News are, to me, some of the best, which are Russian-based news sites. They are some of the best on the planet, okay? Because they look at it from the opposite way, as MSNBC is anti-Trump. I mean, it's really just a website about Trump, bitching about Trump as making him the evil guy, right? And I guess Fox does it on the opposite, and Breitbart and all these guys do. But if you open up these things, but everybody wants to be a good person. Nobody wants to pollute the planet. They don't know that they're polluting. Every time you receive a plastic bag, you're causing pollution. Every time you buy something in a bottle, I guess you're having pollution. Every time you build a bigger house, the bigger the house, the bigger the polluters you are. It's no doubt that the bigger your residence, the bigger polluter you are, okay? You can't, so the bigger the house, the bigger the polluter. I mean, the bigger the business, the bigger the polluter. And then things get out of control and they get mission creep, where what your idealistic goals turn into kind of a fiasco. Okay, but how the U.S. government, I'm going to put this link into the description. I'll put the first link in the description here, but how the U.S. government uses NGOs to corrupt civil society around the world. Washington is weaponizing pseudo-academic human rights groups as part of its foreign policy. I 100% believe this, that the U.S. government uses things. And little do you know that Peace Corps was really, it doesn't really do much, but it does create people that understand a country. They live there for 2 years, and they're like most people that are getting in Peace Corps or volunteering or do anything like that are just packing their CV or their resume, okay? They're not doing it for magnanimous, grateful reasons, unless they're, say, over 55 or something, or 40 or 50. The ones that are 20, they're all doing it just to try to pack their resume to somehow get a better job, which is kind of ridiculous, but that's what they do. I know many people that volunteer only to try to look, it's a form of virtual signaling. And of course, people tell you how they donate because they want you to think they're a good person. A good person doesn't need to tell anybody that they're a good person. Just giving up the plastic bags is probably the greatest thing you can ever do for the pollution of the society. Easiest thing to do. I don't know, walking to a business instead of driving to a business. Getting a small car. The smaller the car, the better you are at saving the thing. The bigger the car, the bigger polluter you are. So the smaller the car, the bigger the city you live in, the bigger polluter you are. The smaller the city, the least. It's really simple common sense, but I don't think it's like everybody goes to these, I don't know, save the world conferences in their private jets. Obviously, they don't care about anything. A good person does the right thing on a continual never thing. That's why when I talk about the philosophy of a philosophy person, like I don't have any kind of advertising on my website anymore. Why? On my YouTube channel, I mean. Why? It's because Google and YouTube are trying to influence me to do things, and I know that I don't get enough. I can't hardly grow. I'm pretty sure that YouTube has taken my channel and squeezed it. They're doing everything possible to make sure you don't do it. If you search for Andy Lee Graham, you're going to find a bunch of trolls or Reddit idiots talking about me. Reddit. I don't know what's the problem with Reddit, but it's an evil website. They do so much evil, acting like they're intelligent. People, when you click on anything because it makes you angry, that's kind of propaganda working, okay? And you should not click on things that just radically make you angry because that's their goal, okay? But this aid organization, Dr. Glenn Deason, professor of University of Southeastern Norway, wrote this article, I guess. It's not even from Russia, right? But I haven't read it really closely, but I do recommend, even if it's all astray, I am 100% positive that aid organizations, for the most part, Nicaragua, I guess, threw out all their aid organizations. And if I wanted to develop a country, that's what I would do. I would throw out all the missionaries and the aid organizations and get rid of anybody that would try to make my country into a poverty nation. But aid organizations pay a lot of money to the government officials, and they really, in some ways, it's the social services of a country. So a lot of countries, especially like Mexico and all these countries, they have no way, they don't care anything about their people, so you might as well let them come in and try to help the people. But aid organizations is a great job for an expat. Don't get me wrong, I have thought it'd be nice to have an aid organization that was beneficial enough that I could actually live and do it. I actually had a college professor many years from Penn State or something like that. I actually talked at Penn State. I actually talked at Harvard. They wanted me to collect information and interview people and collect stuff so they could do these research things. They have to publish, and they don't really, I mean, as far as I can see, almost everybody creates trash reports, okay? Trash publishing is normal, okay? It's not the abnormal. I would say that almost, if you read a study on something, 85% chance that it's just pure trash, okay? And this peer review doesn't mean anything. None of that's just, the world is willing to make money by whatever they can get away with. I really, truly believe that we are going down the deep end because whatever a person can get away with, they're proud of themselves. It's kind of a Darwinian thing too, because Darwin is about not the survival of the fittest. Are you willing to kill the other person? That's Darwinian. It's a battlefield. And it's not the people that are willing to whack the other thing. I remember James Michener's book, Alaska. And at the end of the thing, this guy's dying and he's watching the evil guy climb the mountain. James Michener was a very good person to explain the culture of the planet. He's a much better traveler than me. Maybe. Okay. But he also was a great writer. I mean, his writing was great. But telling a story, like Michael Crichton and James Michener are probably, to me, the most intellectual writers I've ever read. Okay, but how do aid organizations destroy the world? Well, first of all, they go up and give away things. The minute you give away something, you make a beggar. First learned this in Niger, Africa, when I went there for a famine. And it wasn't a famine, it was malnutrition. And then I got a lecture from all these Medicine Sans Frontier people for calling it a famine. They called it as like an epidemic of malnutrition. And then they get on TV and get an interview with BBC, NBC, ABC, whatever, BBC, CNN, all these different organizations, and call it a famine. They would do anything for money, and that is not a good person. If you will lie to justify the means that you will lie to make money, you are a bad person. Okay, that's the bottom line. Okay, if you will ever say a white lie, or you can come up with all these juicy reasons why you're going to lie, I consider you, normal. Okay, I don't consider you even abnormal. I hardly know I have no clear knowledge of anybody that doesn't lie if they're in they just lie. They brag about how they lie. I often talk about, I don't know how many men lie about women, okay? But the aid organizations, I want you to read this article. What the governments do is like President Clinton and all these presidents, what they do is Peace Corps was created to sort of figure out what's going on in countries. Okay, they wanted to get people on the ground, and if you get an overabundance, like say you get 50 or 100 Peace Corps workers in Philippines or Togo, West Africa, or Guatemala, what you get is probably out of that 100, you probably have 2 that are really sharp, and they can go work in the U.S. government and try to help advise the people, but they're doing it only for their resume, and they're not really doing it for magnanimous reason. And you got to really, just because they're in the top 2% doesn't mean they're intelligent. Okay, that just means that they applied themselves. But Peace Corps, is like one of the best organizations on the planet because they're committed. 25% of people that join Peace Corps quit. It's very political, okay, and it's not making the world a better place. They actually, for the most part, want to keep cultures primitive, okay, and as far as I can see, most missionaries, government organizations do not want a country to develop. They want the people to stay poverty and poor. It's like they often promote the artisans, okay? They promote all the local typical fashions, all these things that were anachronisms, something from 50 years ago. Like in Guatemala, they're going to sit there and try to make typical clothing a big deal or something like this because they want to propagate the poverty. They don't realize this. They do it. We had in Lake Athlon where I was at, we had Mayan families, and they finally realized that Sharon was stealing money or something like that. I was so angry at this organization when I said, why are you giving away stuff? Never give away things for free. There's very few things that you can give away for free where it doesn't become corruption, especially food. Giving away food guarantees you create poverty. We have 3rd generation welfare. Why? Because people have no desire to work because they get free money. They have extra babies. There's no encouragement to even get married. I mean, why would they get married if they get more money as a single mother? Okay. 3rd generation corruption. It's a corruption. People know this, but in certain political parties, there's a value in keeping people stupid. You got to dumb them down because they're more easy to work on with propaganda. Education removes the propaganda, but that doesn't mean you can be highly educated and have no understanding on how the world works. My litmus question is, explain to me how internal combustion engine works. If you cannot explain how an internal combustion engine works, I don't consider you very intelligent. It's the number one. The car industry is the number one industry in the United States. If you don't know how an internal combustion engine works, you're not in the top 5% of intelligence. Okay, intelligent people are a little bit knowledgeable on a lot of subjects, not an expert in one thing. An expert in one thing doesn't make you a polymath, a bohemian, a Renaissance person. It makes you an expert on one subject. Maybe, but expert on one subject, book knowledge without 85% experience is worthless. Knowledge does not become valuable until you apply it. Okay, it's like hiring a stockbroker that just became a stockbroker and doesn't have $10 million in stock. Not the person you want to talk to. Just because you took an economic class and studied business in university doesn't make you smart. Okay, that makes you a person that basically fits into society and obeys all the rules and whatever. That does not apply to knowledge. But the aid organizations are giving away stuff. And if you say primo non charity, okay, I tried to make an aid organization, tried to do it, see it about. There's three things that I was trying to give away. One was a mosquito net, screen doors and screen windows. They don't really want mosquito nets. They don't need toilets, and it's debatable whether they need water. Okay, I may, while I'm here, try to figure out if I can find a way to make how to show somebody how to make a deep water drill bit like they did maybe 100 years ago, 150 years ago, 200 years ago. There's deep wells and there's shallow wells. We should be showing everybody on the planet the processes on how to make and create wells. They shouldn't buy them and give them to countries. It's just ridiculous. You should be teaching them how to, you want to teach them how to fish. You don't, then it's a gift for life. If you give them a well, all you did is create a very dangerous situation, because when that well breaks, they never have the plan on how they're going to repair it either. So but people are afraid of not having water. They're afraid of the sun. They're afraid of everything, right? So what their biggest fear is fear of not having a mother. So orphanages, which aren't really orphanages 90% of the time, they're really a place where a bunch of families come together and they create NGOs, and there's not actually orphanages. There's a few. I do think orphanages like that. I was in one in Haiti where the lady grabbed every physically, what would you call it, disabled person. A disabled child orphanage, I would consider something good. Okay, but it's very difficult to say that people are doing this for more than just a job. Okay, very difficult. The only thing I know you can give away for free is knowledge. That's the reason why I was trying to make this Mama Says things, where I was putting a television. I was going to teach them how to download books, and I was going to give them things. I have actually almost 2,000 books in Spanish, French, and 2,000 books in English that I can give away. Guess what? I try to walk into these NGOs that have libraries. They don't even want them. Okay, I go, golly, what is wrong with you? I can give you 2,000 books in English. They don't care about knowledge. They just care in virtual signaling. They want to make money, and they really want donations. They don't actually care about teaching people. But educating people on how to use book readers on their phone, like FB Reader in different languages, and how to put them on their phone safely. Okay. Very problem putting an app on a person's phone, because they do it. I mean, I guess the best way to do it right now, we can probably do it, is create an internet Wi-Fi, then download the app, and then in their local language. And then somehow put 100 books on the thing. But they really, to teach somebody to read, it's best if they start out with cartoons. Cartoons are hard to read on things. I mean, cartoon books. Probably the best education that you can ever give children is a lot of cartoon books. I don't think the cartoons books right now are pretty evil. They're not, it's like Breaking Bad type mentality, right? Very, very difficult to say primo non nocere. First, do no harm. I thought I would put up blackboards all around thing, and then I found out that the guy that was doing it, he basically maneuvered it, right? You have to stop things when things become corrupt. And to have enough money to do it in a non-corrupt way is tough. You want to hire a local, but the locals look at NGOs. Like, I'll give an example. I go to Togo, West Africa all the time. Togo, West Africa, the number one thing they study at university, they have a university of 50,000 students. The things that they study the most is languages. They study English, they study German, because they want to work for an NGO. The biggest occupation besides working for the government is being part of the corruption. So anybody that works for the government, or becomes a policeman, and normally outside the United States especially, is doing it to be able to collect the bribes, okay? And, there's people that literally own governments, and the idea of a government is so that you can suck money from your people. And in turn, you give them less value than they gave to you. It's like Social Security in a way. Everybody says that I've paid in much more in Social Security than I've returned back. I don't care, because to me, Social Security is something that I wouldn't have saved on my own. And I think there's a value in having a savings institution for people against their will. Okay, and that slows down on population, because the reason why we have 10 children is the hope that one out of you can have 5 or 10 children in the Philippines or Guatemala or Mexico or any of these countries, because one of those children may be magnanimous enough to take care of you when you're old. That's why they also, there's so many things that are mixed up. But aid organizations seldom do any good. And they almost always have a white Toyota Land Rover. The minute I see a white Toyota Land Rover, I run, because it's probably got a person driving it that doesn't have a brain in his head, and he is driving faster than he should. That's the goal of working for an NGO. I mean, all through Togo and Ghana and all these countries, Kenya, you have these aid organizations. I was sitting in a bus stop waiting for these little shuttle type size vans, and a guy says, I want you to invest in my church. I want to start a church. Okay, opening a church is a profitable business. Running a church is profitable. And it's all you got to do, though, is be a good speaker and appear thing, which is a great job for a psychopath, right? A psychopath wants to always appear as a generous, nice person. They will not offend anybody. They won't call you guys idiots. And a lot of you guys are idiots. And until you accept that some of you are idiots, you're not going to ever go to the next step. Humility is being teachable, and being teachable is to accept that sometimes we are an asshole. I am often an asshole. I'm not trying to be the best person on the planet. I'm trying to be a good example, but I want you to realize that perfection is both good and bad, okay? And this is where an organization should first start by primo non nocere. First, do no harm. Can you choose something that does no harm? Giving away food obviously makes beggars. Giving away welfare, a continual monthly payment, food stamps and stuff, makes beggars. Okay, it removes the motivation to work. There are times where everybody needs help. Encouraging people to stay married. I mean, see, divorce is the opposite of thing. I don't like dogs, because what you do is you fall in love with your dog and you don't know how to have a relationship with people. If you can't have a relationship with people, you can't have a community. How can you make the world a better place? You don't even like people. You like your dogs better. We now have a 2-dog society where people think they're so lonely they need 2 dogs. Not to talk about the peanut butter and women, right? Peanut butter and women's a big problem. Okay, life is good, and I want you to read this article and understand that aid organizations, 99% of them are corrupt. They have good intentions, some of them, but they they get caught up in their own malaise. They're drinking their own Kool-Aid. They think that they're a good person, but they also always believe that they deserve to make a lot of money to do good. And truly, when there's volunteer organizations, guess what? You have to pay to volunteer. So starting an organization where you get volunteers to come and pay is one of the reasons why they are corrupt. I remember I was in Costa Rica. One of the first times I thought this was too stupid. People were volunteering to pick coffee. And I go, what are you doing? You're competing with the local wages of the Costa Rican people. You're picking coffee. I was in Costa Rica is just permeated with NGOs that are corrupt. But, people that go to, Costa Rica are generally not very bright, okay? It's not one of the best countries. It's one of the worst countries on the planet. Very beautiful, great place for things, but not worth the money. Okay, I've been there 3 times. I was lucky to be there about 20 years ago when it was more economical. I've been there a couple times in the last 2 years, and it's full of homeless people. It's like San Francisco. I have no use for San Francisco. I think it's got to be one of the, I don't know. I'm blaming it on the exhaust fumes. All of California is a basket case. All the West Coast and East Coast is a basket case because of human density. Study the behavioral sink. It's a thing about putting 2,000 mice in a cage and seeing what happens when human density. Human density's got to be one of the worst things for the mind of man, men and women, humanity. The more dense the people is, the crazier the people are. The denser they are, the crazier they are. And the leaders, I think, are psychopaths, because anybody that would volunteer to be, that would run for office in these places, has a desire to control people that are out of control. Okay, that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. But please don't give to aid organizations. Maybe give to Red Cross. Give blood, okay? That's one of the best things you could possibly do. I just gave blood last week. Every time I come home, I can only give blood every 8 weeks. Hard to do twice in one trip here. But giving blood is going to help save a life. That's about the only thing I think you could do with the least amount of things. But if you got tattoos and your pants are falling down and you're one of these deviants, don't give blood, okay? Because we don't need your blood. We need good people's blood. Not everybody's good. Can you accept that? Can you understand that there are evil on the planet? Everybody goes to church and they don't believe it. And then when I say it, I get everybody angry at me because I'm more than willing to tell you the truth. You have to be very careful in today's society. But we have people so fear-based that they're walking around with a mask right now. They're afraid they're going to die. We got the most prosperity ever in the United States until the economy crashes here pretty soon, I hope. The only thing I think the recovery of the United States is a depression. We have to have a depression where you got about 25% unemployment. It's the only thing that's going to make common sense and consequences of their behavior kick in. We got a whole entitled population that thinks that they're brilliant because they got a smartphone, aka dumb phone. These things are the dumbest things you can possibly have. Anybody with any brains would get a computer, okay? I mean, it's $200 you can get a computer. Right now I saw on Best Buy, it's $149 for a computer at Best Buy, HP. I have 2 of these computers. Why? Because the bigger the screen, the more information on the screen, the more you can choose the best, make the best decision. On a little screen, the propaganda works really good, okay? On a small screen, Google just feeds you what they want to feed. And you can't sit there and make a choice of like 20 options. You can only make a choice of 2 options. It's exactly what they want. And iPhone is probably the biggest propaganda organization on the planet. They make you even think, I don't know. I have no use for anymore. I don't know what to say. The only way to have any kind of business anymore is a one-person business, or you can have. It appears that what you can get away with business seems to be the norm. What they can overcharge you and by making you naive is the norm. Just laughing, the real estate industry just got in trouble for being a monopoly. Go figure. It's been a monopoly since forever, for as long as I know. I used to sit there and say, hey, I'm highly overpaid. It takes the same amount of work to sell a $50,000 house as it does the $500,000 house. In fact, the $500,000 house is probably easier. Okay, but we get paid a percentage. Like that's something. It's like the estates. Estates, the attorneys will get like 6% for thing, and they are criminal. Okay, but they make these laws to help themselves. Self-serving laws. Aid organizations are the same. They make everything a catastrophe, and what they're doing is they're defining every country as a piece of shit, so that the countries that are donating, like the big ones like France and USA and Germany, can appear to be the saviors of the world while they push down, it's Darwinian, they're pushing down the countries and making them appear stupid, poor, and ignorant so that they can rise up. It's almost a business decision. What do you want to do? You want to make your competition appear stupid. Everybody wants to make China appear stupid, Russia to appear stupid. It's a competition. And the petrodollars being converted right now, if the United States don't stop with this crazy Ukrainian war and just let it get over with and let Ukraine be taken over by Russia, the petrodollar is going to change to the yen or something else, and the United States is going to be shit out of luck. Okay, it's a crazy world we live in. But the saving grace is you, as the individual, can make choices that are noble, correct, and whatever. But primo non nocere, first do no harm. And if you really want to, you put it out there with a bunch of your friends and try to say, how is this causing a problem? And if you got smart enough friends, they will find it. Very difficult to do it. I will give you a thing. Education is the only thing I know that, not giving away so much. I mean, an overwhelming amount of books is not something people want. Okay, people, loading up books and taking them to poor places is valuable. Books are made for leaders. Leaders are readers. Okay, I'm kind of sad about the whole aid organization because I have a lot of people want to talk to me as if they're a good person, and I don't want to spill it. I mean, the toilet situation is absolutely insane. You know that little children in Africa drown out in toilets? They put up these toilets all over Togo, and they got them all locked up because the children climb in there and drown because they got this fluid in there, all this stuff, this super crazy bullshit stuff. And it kills children. And you sit there and you go, why are all the toilets? You just talk to the people and they tell you. They set up toilets in the Amazon, and I said, why is nobody using these things? And they said, we were on this elevated houses. They said, well, the river is going to rise like 10 meters and they're all going to be underwater and they'll be gone. The river changes. It goes up and down. Global warming, one of the biggest ways to get free money for research on the planet, for the economic. See, what happens on global warming is you can get $1 billion from Obama so that you can do research on how to have solar energy and turn it into a business. So most of these aid organizations are having they create a nonprofit to fund something so that they can make money on the back end. They get the people to pay for their research so that they can then turn it into a business. Go figure. An organization of 1 or 2 people can be noble. An organization, the more people, the more dishonest they are. World Vision is one of the worst on the planet. They are evil. Okay. I'm tired. I'm tired of watching this stuff, and I don't know any clear solution. You cannot educate people because the propaganda controls your brain. The only way I know to break the propaganda is to change countries like every 30 days or 60 days so that they can't get a hook on your head. Everybody thinks that they are intelligent. Everybody thinks that they're the most knowledgeable person. But if anything you can take from this thing is primo non nocere, first do no harm. My Patreon page will show a church and a thing with some children in Africa. They're on the Togo-Ghana border, washing clothes. Really a beautiful thing. And I want people to understand the goal is we try to be the best person we can. I'm not really, I have a hard time believing that my Buddhist girlfriend in Thailand would go to hell. I don't believe that some really good Muslims I know are going to go to hell. I think the goal of religion is that we are given a bunch of very confusing things, and a good person finds the good choice. But life is good, guys. I'm here in heaven. I happened to be raised in Indiana, which has to be one of the most paradise locations on the planet. I feel sorry for the East Coast and West Coast. They are lost in space. They have lost the plot, and the only thing that's going to solve their situation is a complete bubble burst, depression. And I'm hoping for a depression because we have to change this before the bubble gets bigger. The bubble is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it could take longer and longer to recover from the crashes. Not everything about a depression is an evil thing. It's the checks and balances on the economy. Okay, recessions and depressions are checks. We have a recession about every 12 to 14 years, and we have a depression about every 60 years. We're due for a depression. And I'm hoping that we have one because it's the only hope for the people of the United States. The rest of the world is not even going to get phased. It's not really a big deal. The only countries that suffer deeply are the overdeveloped countries, the 25 highly industrial nations, because they're going to have mass employment because they're mass employers. They have factories that employ 2,000, 10,000 people. When you have a business that employs 10,000 people, you can destroy the lives of a lot of people really fast. Okay, I'm Andy Lee Graham. Become a Patreon if you believe that what I'm saying is worth telling the world. That's the kind of the choice to make. You got a $5, $25, $50. I'm in Indiana, and I'm always amazed at how many people write me an email and don't tell me who they are. I'm not going to. What value is it talking to anonymous people? This has got to be the most insane thing. People, I introduce myself to people constantly, and they say their first name as if they're ashamed of who they are. And they should be.